Welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation. My name is Paul Barron. I'm your host today. And of course, we always love to dive into not only some of the top brands in the industry, but also some of the things from a technology standpoint that are happening within the food service sector, especially in this area of limited service, which of course contains fast casual, quick serve, QSR, and the ever-growing full service business now that is starting to do takeout and delivery, which has completely shifted their game and model. We have with us a gentleman by the name of Yael Goldberg, who is the Chief of Staff at PopID. Great to have you on, Yael.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Yael, you're calling us from Los Angeles. You're not near the fires or anything, right? You're all safe?
We're safe and sound.
Man, this is crazy, the number of fires that I'm seeing in California. This is unbelievable. I'm just totally blown away by that.
It is a crazy time.
It's you guys are in some heavy stuff out there. Let's get into PopID though. And I want to learn a little bit about how the technology works. How'd you guys come up with the concept? What was the model that kind of brought you guys to market?
Yeah, so PopID was actually incubated and funded initially by a group called the Cali Group. So the Cali Group incubated a couple of different tech companies. Some that you may know, Miso Robotics, that has Flippy the Robot. And Super League Gaming, which is a gaming company, an esports company that went public on the NASDAQ a few years back. Kitchen United, which is obviously doing fantastic things in food delivery and cloud kitchens. And then also, Cali Group owns a restaurant chain called Cali Burger, which is an international restaurant chain. And so really the greatest benefit of working with the Cali Group is that we're able to test our product in a real live environment. And so the reason why PopID really came to be was that we saw that the QSR landscape was really moving towards adopting kiosks. But we knew that there was a key deficiency with kiosks, which is that it took maybe 7 times as long to place an order, 3.5 minutes at a kiosk versus 30 seconds at the cashier. So we needed to find a way to expedite the process of ordering at a kiosk because we knew there were tons of benefits and it made sense to put in kiosks, but we had to fix this one deficiency. And so by using facial recognition, we could present customers with their past orders, which we know they reordered on a regular basis. And we could automatically provide them with their loyalty points without scanning a QR code. And then we could allow for face-based payment, which we would eventually begin really focusing on. So that would expedite the process of the final transaction. Yeah. And so that's really where PopID got started. And now we've transitioned into creating a universal network using the face.
Interesting. So this is truly Minority Report all over. And it's just, we just haven't seen it yet. And as we walk through, our environment in life that is just constantly picking us up via cameras. I'm kind of curious, you're a Stanford guy, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so your background is, were they teaching facial recognition and study of these kinds of technologies? Because that seems fairly advanced for a college.
We weren't focused specifically on facial recognition. We studied some pretty interesting things in my 2 degrees at Stanford, had obviously an unbelievable experience and learned a ton, but facial recognition was not something I came out of college thinking this is a field that I really have expertise in. It's been kind of a progress and learning and working with some great partners.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that because facial recognition is a technology that is being utilized in a lot of different places right now. I mean, if you look at self-driving cars, those cameras are essentially doing facial recognition, but from the environment standpoint. And the amount of data points that it's hauling in and what it takes to run a system like that. With PopID, is this an infrastructure that's huge? Is this something that can be deployed fairly easy for a restaurant operation?
So when we focus on PopPay as our payment mechanism, it's something that can be deployed by a restaurant the day that they decide to accept PopPay. So PopPay is just like accepting Amex or accepting Visa. It's just an additional payment method that you can add on to the types of payment methods that you already accept. And the setup process is extremely easy and essentially allows that business to tap into our network of PopPay users to accept face-based payments. And there are, I'm sure we'll get into it, but there are tons of benefits of PopPay, including reduced credit card processing fees for the merchant. Right. And then obviously touch-free payment mechanism.
I'm kind of curious, what's the process for developing a facial recognition system that gets approved by a banking system or through a merchant that's able to say, yeah, we'll take facial recognition? Because not all apps, I mean, you see more and more apps now jumping to facial recognition, at least on the iPhone. Was it a big hurdle for you guys from a technology standpoint to kind of overcome that to where you could start being accepted in a lot of different formats?
Yeah, I think we've been working on facial recognition for over 3 years now. From a legal perspective, we have a very good understanding of kind of the legislation within the U.S. and then also GDPR in Europe. We also, our founder and chairman of Cali Group went to Stanford Law School, is a fantastic on the legal side, and so we've made sure that being a consumer-facing brand, that needs to be top of mind for us, not only being compliant with everything, but also making sure that our consumers feel comfortable. And that's the biggest thing for us, is making sure that everything that we do is on an opt-in basis. Potentially, our customers or users need to opt in multiple times before they can use our system. And so that gives us peace of mind. It also gives our consumers peace of mind, and makes this a lot easier to adopt as a merchant and as a consumer.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about, kind of going down this line of GDPR, biometric data, those kind of things. Obviously, as a consumer, most consumers don't necessarily worry about that today as much because it's not out in the wild in such a landslide of use cases. It's very selective. I'm still finding places that don't accept Apple Pay, those kind of things. Yeah. So it's going to take a while for us to get there. But in the next 5 years, this is likely going to become the new normal. My question is, from a standpoint of biometric data, how secure is it? How's the process work? I mean, now I'm sharing my face. Not only, obviously we're away from the fingerprint now for most things, unless you're an Android user, but with Face ID, it starts to change things up quite a bit, because now you're getting into banking data, you're getting into potentially medical records, all sorts of things that really expand beyond what used to be our simple PIN to get into our ATM account. Where and do you think companies are going to be able to maintain security going forward to make sure biometric data is safe?
Yeah, so obviously we could have an hour-long discussion about all of the different security practices that we have, and how we're encrypting this data, and all the everything else that we're doing to ensure that this data is kept safely. One mishap is, for a startup like PopID, one mishap is the end of the road for us. Yeah, so if this is the primary focus. Again, sometimes I sound like a broken record, but we're also a consumer-facing brand. So we need to be able to convince consumers that they trust PopID to hold their biometric data and be their kind of universal source of truth for authentication over whatever other competitors may pop up. And there will be others, obviously. And so that's a key to us.
Yeah. Doing good is good for business. As the world's largest B Corp, Danone North America is committed to doing good for the world and for your business, with the brands customers love, like International Delight, Oikos, Silk, Horizon Organic, and many others. Learn more at DanoneAwayFromHome.com. I'm kind of curious, because I want to get into the case study or the case uses, because this is really where it starts to change the landscape. We are dealing with pretty much a new format in what the restaurant industry is going to look like in the next 10 years. It started, we kind of saw it coming, but most experts, I think, really felt we were 5 to 10 years away from where we are right now, which is a lot more to go: takeout, delivery, contactless payment, alternative modes of being able to get to food. When you look at your product, how do you see your product applying into the landscape as it is today? Now, the new COVID and post-COVID landscape, where do you see this being used most?
Well, I think there's a few key points here. You talk about delivery or off-prem ordering. With that comes card not present credit card processing fees. One of the reasons why PopPay exists is that there was an increasing amount of transactions were taking place with card not present credit card processing fees. Exactly. And so our customers were constantly coming to us saying, our goal for 2019 or our goal for 2020 is to reduce these credit card processing fees. How can you help us? And so that is part of the reason why we created PopPay, was essentially to take these payments outside of the network and offer a much lower credit card processing rate. Now, our focus up to this point, which has largely been in Pasadena as our kind of beta network, has been on premise. Still, the credit card processing savings is massive. It costs about 50%. Processing a payment through PopPay costs about 50% of what it would if somebody swiped a card.
Right.
And then that becomes even a much larger savings when you get into off-prem ordering or digital ordering. So I think that PopPay is going to fit right into this landscape of off-prem ordering. And then additionally, I think that like you said, we've kind of advanced where we expected to be because of coronavirus. Touch-free is becoming extremely important. So we are a completely touch-free payment mechanism. And I think that this is something that restaurateurs are definitely looking for right now, aside from the cost savings.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so on the cost savings side of it, is it just that the merchant and the banks are looking at Face ID as a more secure method, that they're able to offer the rates at a lower rate? Because your merchant payment processing fees now, especially in today's world, because now we're getting very thin on profitability in restaurants. So every piece
Absolutely
counts. Why is it that it's less expensive than a traditional card swipe?
The way that PopPay works, we're actually taking the payment outside of the network. So we're loading up a card, like a wallet, a digital wallet that's tied to the face.
Okay.
And then we're
using that as the transaction point?
Exactly. So each transaction, we're reducing the amount of money in the wallet. We're transferring that money from the customer to the merchant. And so it's outside of that. Outside of the network, we stop those fixed fees every time somebody swipes a card. So one of the easiest ways to think about it is it's like a universal Starbucks card.
Okay. So,
you go to Starbucks every morning. Yep. You go to Starbucks every morning. You have $50 tied to your Starbucks card. You swipe your card. They're just transferring that money from the card back to the business, and they're eliminating that 10 cent or 20 cent fixed fee with every transaction. So by cutting that out, PopID can offer significantly lower rates for the merchant.
The bank's got to hate this.
It's new, and I think change is going to be difficult for a lot of people. But I think that there's also a lot of the major credit card companies and banks that want to also participate, and there are ways that we can work together with kind of the existing infrastructure so that everyone's a winner.
Interesting. We won't get into the money that happens when you look into that kind of reference. Is it instantaneous, or are you guys using algorithms to kind of leverage against that cash pile that's sitting out there in the open? How is that being managed?
What do you mean when you say is it instantaneous?
Well, you're saying that it's going into a platform that's outside the merchant network, so that's sitting somewhere. It can't be just in the cloud. There has to be a transaction that's tied to for a banking transaction.
Yeah.
Who is controlling that cash pile?
That's right. We use third parties. To control pretty much the entire ecosystem that we've set up for transferring the funds. And so we use Plaid and Voila are two of our key partnerships.
There you go. That's what I was getting to. Okay, so Plaid. Wow. Okay, so you guys are using Plaid. I've talked to several companies that have started to use Plaid. I did not realize that Plaid had so much control over your bank account that they do. When you're actually using a Plaid-based system. That's very intriguing. Okay, that's another conversation that we got to have for sure.
Absolutely.
I want to talk further about being deployed. Do you have any case studies out there or examples of this system in place, whether it's a quick serve restaurant, fast food, fast casual concept, anything that you can talk to that's actually seeing this being in a use case and successful?
Yeah, we do. So in Pasadena, we have about 25 merchants that are accepting PopPay in the drive-thru, in counter service, in full-service restaurants, and in retail as well. So we have a full network where consumers are registering using their face when they wake up in the morning to buy their coffee, when they go to lunch to get their acai bowl or whatever they may order for lunch, their burger, and then also when they go to dinner at a full-service restaurant. So consumers in Pasadena are able to use it across the city.
Wow, that's great. Okay, all right. So your plans right now make it into a multi-unit chain, I'm assuming, getting it rolled out, whether it's a fast casual or a QSR concept. Do you see this being implemented in the drive-thru anytime soon?
Absolutely. We have a bunch of fantastic discussions that are going on, and the drive-through has kind of been a savior for restaurants right now, and expediting the process of getting through the drive-through is fantastic. And then there's also, maybe a conversation for another day, but there's also a ton of customization or personalization that can take place with recognizing that person, going through the drive-through with a digital menu board so we can present them what they love, kind of like a kiosk, but in the drive-through, also with just a lot of interesting personalization and suggested behavior.
So the platform does have the ability to tie. Are you tied into any loyalty platforms like a Punch or someone like that right now, where you can start to generate points or look at previous orders and queue those up? How much integration do you have in the marketplace?
Yeah, so we have a couple different integrations that we worked on for our kiosk product. So we had customers that were using Level Up or Punch for the kiosk. And so we've done a few of those different integrations. We also have our own proprietary loyalty system that we can incorporate into each of these different products.
Okay. All right. So do you have to be integrated into the point of sale system? So if I'm an operator and I say I have micros, or I'm over here operating on, Square, what is the flexibility there for me able to enable this?
This is a great question and something that we really thought through. We do not need, for our PopPay product, we do not need to be integrated into the point of sale system.
There you go. Now you've won. That's the biggest problem with most of the industry is the POS integration. So if you can circumvent that, that's huge.
That's exactly right. There's a lot of point of sale systems like Toast or Square that are really making their money on the processing, right? So those are companies that are never going to integrate with a system like what we've built. And so we needed to find a way around that. And by creating a custom payment tender, we've found a very simple way to get around kind of those necessary integrations. It also allows us to get up and running with our merchants really quickly.
So if it was a Toast or a Square application that's out there, would the vendor be able to or the restaurant still be able to use PopID?
Absolutely. So we create a custom tender. Okay. We create a custom tender, and instead of credit card or cash, they would select PopPay as the custom tender, and then in the sales report, they would have another, a line item as PopPay instead of cash or credit.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So these are great points, you guys. I love the fact that you've kind of looked at the market and saw all the pain points, which is speed, throughput. That we've got to get past that at the kiosk point. Kiosks are never going to make it if we don't speed them up. Same thing with drive-through. If you can eliminate 20 seconds a guest, I mean, you're talking about a huge throughput number over a week period. That's huge, because someone like a McDonald's who's running 70% drive-through numbers, that's massive. Or someone like a Sonic Drive-In who's got 25 pay stations essentially that's running simultaneously. That's another big issue that the industry is taking. I think a lot of people are looking at those kind of models now. We're going to be talking to Shake Shack, and then we just saw Taco Bell releasing these multi-lane, multi-kiosk, all these different points of entry for a guest to essentially not use a human to place an order. So I could see face recognition being a huge thing. All right, let's talk about consumer adoption, because I think that's kind of the next step, and that is you've got this population out there scared to death of this virus. They don't want to touch anybody, but they got the mask on. So how are you dealing with that under a Face ID situation? Yeah, so our facial recognition algorithm comes from a few different sources that we put together along with some proprietary technology. And so we actually have the ability to recognize faces with a mask on. At this point in our Pasadena beta network, we're not using that capability. We understand that there's less data points, and so we're continuing to test that facial recognition algorithm on some of our other products before we implement it in our payment systems. Right now, we ask that our consumers pull down their mask slightly as their face is being scanned for the payment, and then they can put their mask right back up. And so there is a quick second without the mask on. Okay. All right. I don't think it's going to be I say I don't think it's going to be a long-term effect. We may have a much longer-term effect on society of how this is going to be rolling out. So I was going to be curious to see how that rolls out from a standpoint of just, because I would assume that the merchants are the ones that are pushing back on the security estimates, I'm assuming, in terms of being able to get the data points to transact some sort of monetary.
You know, it's not something that we've spoken about in depth with our merchants. We're focused on ensuring that we never have, false negatives and false positives.
Yeah.
We've in the couple of years that we've been processing face-based payments, we've never had a false positive. We feel very confident about that.
Wow.
And we want to make sure that stands.
That's a good track record. Okay, so let's get into the acceptance role. Okay, so people, let's say this gets rolled out into, where it's almost in every restaurant, because I could see this just like a credit card swipe, just everybody's got it. Face ID payment, it's already happening on the mobile device. What are your thoughts in issues with concern from a consumer group that may push back on this in terms of just scared of that kind of technology? They don't want their face out there, those kind of things. What are your thoughts on that, and how would you guys deal with it?
We deal with that by being a consumer opt-in network. Everything that we do is opt-in, opt-out. So consumers are never having their face recognized without having opted in to our system, agreeing to the terms and conditions and privacy policy, and understanding what they're becoming involved with. And then at any time, our consumers can opt out. And when they opt out, very simple, they go into their profile, they click deactivate my account, and all of their data is deleted. So we are a consumer-facing brand, and we want our consumers to feel extremely comfortable. We also understand that there is going to be people that are uncomfortable. That's where we're at. We're early in the adoption of biometrics, but we're starting to see a real increase in kind of the percentage of consumers that are comfortable with using biometrics, and we attribute that to the iPhone, Clear, and kind of all the other applications where just the typical consumer is using biometrics.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Europe and GDPR, I think we're going to see that eventually if our government can get off their tails and actually implement something like that to actually protect citizen data. But at the point of Europe, because you're going to have to move into Europe eventually for these kinds of payment transactions, GDPR is pretty tough on this when it comes to biometric and personalized data of being able. So you're saying that you have a little block somewhere in the cloud that's got my name and information in it. If I opt out, it takes that little block, delivers it back to me, and flushes it from your system immediately.
In its simplest terms, we are deleting everything that we have on that specific consumer, so we have no record of them.
So no transaction record. Are you maintaining any transaction record?
We maintain the transaction record for the merchant. So in the merchant account, they'll know that transaction still took place. That's like something normal. That we can't. That's something that we can't remove. But this person will not be recognized. This person no longer has a profile in PopID, and they can no longer use the services that require PopID as an authentication service.
Yeah. Do you guys have any plans to start working with things like Bitcoin or some of the cryptocurrencies out there? Is there some opportunities there for this?
I think that there are definitely opportunities. It's something that came up in internal conversations a while back when Facebook started with their cryptocurrency, but it's not something that we've been focused on at this point.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so this has been a good conversation, man. I love what you guys are doing. I think anything that can really speed up the process, deal with security, keep everything safe, and make it easier for consumers probably going to win in the restaurant space. It'll be interesting to kind of see how the adoption starts to take hold. I think it's a little different today than it would be if it was 6 or 12 months ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how you guys shake out here. Yale, it's been great having you on. Thanks so much for stopping in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great chatting with you.
All right. Okay. So all you guys listening in over here on Fast Casual Nation, you know the drill. The podcast and our video version of this is really designed to uncover some of the best brands that are out there in the restaurant and hospitality space. Typically, they lead through the fast casual sector. In some cases, it's companies like a PopID that we get on the show that we think, hey, this is an interesting technology that could really help you as an operator. So that's the idea. We want you guys to kind of give us your feedback, drop some ratings, give us some feedback on whether you're listening to this podcast over on iTunes or Spotify, or if you're on YouTube right now, just drop some comments and let us know if you like what you're seeing or hearing. And if you have an idea and you want to keep it on the down low, just shoot us an email to producer@foodabletv.com. And you can always hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We will catch you guys next time right here on Fast Casual Nation.